Hello, hello, and welcome to the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane from FirmFlex and managing partner of Ruane Attorneys, a civil rights and criminal defense firm in Connecticut. With me, as always, my man down there, Seth Price. Seth, hanging out with the Pilma crew this week, but you are managing partner of Price Benowitz, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina, as well as the Grand Poobah of Blue Shark Digital. So great to be with you this week in our new environment, Seth, the Law Firm Blueprint. How are you liking it so far?
I'm loving it. It feels good. I love the fact that we have all these assets under one roof and can bring so much value to our audience.
Yeah, it's been great for me. The group is really starting to take off. Before as it morphed from the systems group into the law firm blueprint, we started seeing a lot more engagement, a lot more people posting ideas. I'm getting out there and aggressively putting stuff out there every day. I've got posts scheduled out for weeks to come on some systems, but we've got some marketing ideas. In fact, this past Friday, we had Maddie from Blue Shark talking to us about Google My Business or Google Business Profile, whatever you call it. And that was a phenomenal 20-ish minute presentation that we were able to put up, really get people to understand the basics of it. And as somebody who's been in the digital marketing space for years, I don't think you can undersell the value of Google My Business at this point in 2022, can you?
No, not at all. For anybody who's doing any sort of consumer-facing, particularly local play, it's essential. Now, what's interesting is that I believe a large portion of the monetizable traffic comes through there. But when you look at it, and this dovetails into one of our first topics today, a lot of the traffic that you get is not coming through there. So it's an interesting back and forth. Target rich traffic, definitely. Overall traffic, it can be a small percentage by comparison.
So that, this isn't something that we prepped about, but I'm curious. Do you think, and I'm curious because I know your sort of biases towards digital marketing. Do you think a law firm could survive in 2022 with just a GMB or GBP and nothing else?
Well, look, I remember not years ago, but there were people who were sort of playing around with the idea. What if you took your Google business profile? It sucks because I want to call it
GMB, GBP.
Yeah, but we're going to grandfather that name for purposes of this show. So we know what we're talking about. We just like the name. We're old school, as in like 2 months ago. But what's interesting is I remember somebody took and put their Avo profile. Now, Avo has a whole bunch of issues. Please don't get me started. Could get you started worse. But the idea that you took a third-party maxed out profile, I don't care if it's super large or if it's Avo with huge domain authority on the site, right? Using that link as your website, knowing that you're going to see the reviews, there were people messing around with that to see whether or not, because think about it, most people watching the show have websites with domain authorities under 30, and you're competing. So that's just one crazy, when it goes to it, let's say you start with nothing. Is there a place to use a third-party website as your primary website on a Google My Business? And you see that more and more when I'm looking at stuff online. People aren't even providing a website. They want you either booking through Google, calling, chatting, but their own website is becoming superfluous. Now, I think law firms have a little bit of ways to go, maybe not that long, but it is an interesting question. And maybe we'll go to our second topic first, and then we'll come back to the websites. But that sort of dovetails to what you asked in the pre-show.
Right, because this week, and I definitely want to get back to it because I saw Rand Fishkin, who is a friend of yours, has been on your SEO show, your SEO Insider show. I saw him speak pre-COVID. I want to say it was November of 2017, right after he had left Moz and he had written his book, and he talked about something. But put a pin in that one. Let's get to this. So I have been out of the office for this week. I'm still working, but I'm working remotely. I'm working up at the other end of our state. And I've got an opportunity, I think, because while we do have one office, it's outside of the capital area. I've been up there with my daughter for a ballet intensive program. I'm thinking, could you imagine me in a tutu doing the ballet? Is that why you're smiling? So what I'm thinking is, should I just be opening up a lot more local offices? And
by the way, before you go, I got to jump in with the story. I hope please indulge me, the audience too. So I'm at Disney or Disney Springs, and there's this little amphitheater, and there was a sort of each school gets to come, they get their 5 minutes of fame, and then they buy $1,000 in Disney products and, tickets. And one girl was sick. So this one non-svelte 35-year-old instructor male is now in the routine with the little girls so that they weren't missing a person. And sure as shit, kept missing every thrown up, baton. It was such a train wreck. The parents are all there videoing, and here's this giant person in the middle of these little girls doing the routine, not just there, but doing it badly. It was hysterical with their quasi uniform on. It was.
I love it. Maybe it was me. Who knows? I'm not one to shirk from that opportunity to get out there and try something crazy like that. But anyway, so I drop her off, and I'm driving around Hartford. Basically, I got 3.5 hours to kill before she's dismissed for the day. Went over to the law school, went to my regional office, which is like 20 minutes away, and I'm driving down, and I'm seeing, there are, hey, office for rent. I'm looking it up. I'm like, there's a lot of people around this area. It's a cheap office for rent. And I'm wondering to myself, with this sort of opportunity now to establish small local offices, conference areas that I can meet with people if I need to. Most of the time I don't. How many local offices is too many? Should I ring it around my major area instead of being right in the middle with all the other lawyers and hit all the suburbs? Should I be doing that? Because I could easily do that for probably as expensive as one kick-ass office in the middle of town. I can have a whole bunch of regional offices surrounding the major city. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's the play. But then
But look, there are a bunch of factors, right? And what I would say is the first thing is you don't want to seem non-genuine, right? Google's they want a real piece. And we saw this with spammy listings. Now, if you got the number one rule is do not just sign a contract with Regis and say, oh, there's 7 offices in my area, because you'll be gone. So the next question is how many? And look, we talked a lot and we presented in Maddie's presentation on proximity. All of these different elements that we've talked about both on the show and outside the show are that proximity is huge. You get less bang for your buck from an office. So yes, more is needed and is important. But I think that there's also and again, this is the safety. It comes down to moneyballing value, because if you're in a competitive place, an office alone doesn't do you much good if everybody in that area has 100 reviews. So to me, look, you have more than 100 reviews at your main offices, but it is hard to get 100 reviews at each of 12 offices, right? And then if you do that and you assume you're not doing multiple reviews per person, that you're going to, every per happy client, then you're sort of taking your foot off in your main office, and you might have other people pass, which you don't want either. Right. So I think it's a combination of, I've sort of, again, there are lots of ways to perceive this, but A, B, and C offices. A offices, primary office, want to win or at least be competitive on the review count. Secondary offices are ones that might be, a tier 2 town for you. And the third could be places where you sort of truly are moneyballing, where there's population and not a lot of competition. The advantage there is 5 to 10 reviews on a smaller area might move the needle. The issue that you run into is very often you're like, well, that's great. And those smaller areas are nice, but I want the areas with higher density population.
Right, because there's more opportunity there.
But that's where the review counts are higher. So again, no easy answer. If it was, it would be there. But I think that just like many things, it's, you have the idea. We talk about this a lot, you and me, both on and off air. You then sort of put that in the hibernation for whatever period of time it is. Make sure that you genuinely want cases there, right? Is there money there if it's a fee for service? Is it a good place for cases? And then is there enough population? Once you do it, yeah, sure. An additional pin on the map is great. I think that like many things, you get too greedy. Anything that becomes, you and I are people with targets on our back. When you get too much, it can get to the point where somebody can say, hey, this doesn't look natural. And when that happens, whether it be something manual from Google or whether it's the algorithm picking it up, you don't want to do something that's outside the standard deviation. You could get away with it, but that's where the risk comes in. When it's your main core business, I'm always a bit conservative. At the same time, you want to push the envelope.
Okay, so that leads me to a follow-up question, and this is something that we've been debating internally with my marketing people. I'm curious to get your perspective on it. Is how many reviews are enough? And let me set up the question because I know your answer, and the initial response is as many as you can get. Like this is we have an
No,
infinite
but that's
capacity for, but
of course, but no.
but should you look for you find who the next best person in your market is and you want to double their reviews? Do you want to 150% of their reviews? So they have 100, you got 150. Do you want to do you like how many? Because you could then take those resources and apply them to reviews in secondary locations. We can open up
No, yeah,
obviously
yeah, 1,000%.
a personal a public profile page since we are lawyers and Google allows that. You could direct some of them to that so that if you're moving yourself around, you can establish, hey, I'm going to change the name of my public profile page to my firm because I'm establishing a beachhead, and boom, you're at 75 reviews right off the jump. So is there, if you were counseling me saying, hey, I see that in your market, we've got people with 100, 90 and 115 reviews, and you're at 75. I'd like to see you get to what number in the next year would be, if they stayed the same.
I look at a
Do you
couple
want to
different
be
categories, right? One is you want to be the most. The second would be, or you want to be the most by a lot, meaning not
okay?
800 to. I mean, this some of it's subjective,
Right,
but
I know,
to me,
and I understand it's subjective. That's why I'm asking
right.
because I want to
But
have that
what I'm
conversation.
saying is,
Like,
I look. There are people where they have like 1,000 reviews, and the next guy has like 25. I think there could be issues where it looks like it's gamified. Again, I'm not the right person. I'd
okay,
love to focus group that and find out what people think on that. But you have 800 5-star reviews. It's never going to hurt you. But to me, it's a waste. I think the better question I get, and I see a lot, is, and I talked to like John Fisher, love him. He has so many reviews for his market that he could be there for 4 lifetimes before somebody else catches up,
okay,
right? What I would love to see is if people love John, I'd love him to open, whether it's New York City, whether it's Westchester, open an office and use that love to generate reviews because every incremental review he has right now isn't going to move the needle meaningfully for him. But if he took the next 250, let's say he's 250 going for 500 reviews, leave 250 in upstate New York and do the next 250 in another place. And I think that the key is, number one, I think, is to have the most. Again, assuming that you're within the same star ranking,
right,
if you're within it, as you gain reviews over time, very often you're going to get statistically some crazies,
yeah,
or you'll mess up a case or two. So when you have a 4.9 or a 4.8, does that matter compared to a 5.0? If you're buying on Amazon, do you care if somebody has a slightly lower rating but 5,000 reviews versus a person at 130 and they're perfect? I saw this early on with TripAdvisor, that when you look at a smaller property that has statistically lower number of reviews, any proprietor could go and really solicit 75 reviews over
for
the
sure,
course of a year with the people that he upgrades. And every time he gave an upgrade, he gets a review. You're going
right.
to, whereas you can't do that if it's the Maui Westin with 50,000 reviews on Trip. You know what I mean? So going back to your question, I think that you want to get the most. I'm not sure that from a Moneyball point of view, you want to blow it away, in the sense that if Jay Ruane has double the next guy in town, not that other people don't catch up. I have that in DC. A competitor of mine is always trying to catch up to us in DC, and we've kept a cushion. But I've also said, hey, we have these other offices, and we have a unique thing because our service is done, in essence, not in the old school way where they're going to this office. Well, it's a Virginia file. Where do we ask for the review at the end of a case, or where do we encourage somebody to leave a review? Wanting to make sure, and there are places where somebody else is all fired up in one of my second or third tier offices, where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be number one. I'm okay with that. Let's be a solid 2, and then build the review somewhere else. Because there, I could take the next 150 instead of trying to fight for that 1 and open 2 other offices and have meaningful numbers. To answer your last question, is there a place for just sort of a throwaway office with 5 to 10 reviews? The way Google is pushing us with localization, the answer is yes. I don't love that many out there, At the same time, if you have an opportunity where you can rent something cost effectively in a way that works and get a handful of reviews, 5 to 10, it may have benefits with LSAs. It may have, have benefits on visibility, assuming that it's not too close. Because I think that's where the issue is. Google's continuously always, they brought the proximities, they brought it in. At some point, they're going to think, hey, that's not a great user experience. People don't really need the closest lawyer. They don't like a pizza. They actually want the person who's best suited for them. It may move out. So I wouldn't be too reactionary, but an additional office, especially where not that many reviews will move the needle, I love it.
Yeah, one of the things that we did earlier in the year to develop some of our strategy was actually look at the top 100 cities and towns in our state and actually came up with a review count of the top of the people in the 3-pack to see what opportunity existed. We identified a particular area that I think we're going to go after next, and we're looking for space there because we think with 30 reviews.
We look at that. If somebody says, how competitive is a market? That's one of those areas. And if all the competitors have 700 to 900 reviews that are showing up in the 3-pack, that's going to take resources well beyond, the old school, oh, we'll do a year of SEO and you'll be there. Those reviews are added. And I just, I think I mentioned in a prior show, we had to come to Jesus with a great firm that was like, why aren't we moving faster? Like the organic was crushing it, but they hadn't done reviews in 4 or 5 months, not a single review. And I'm like, it's a combination of all these things. Will the proximity expand and contract? I'm sure. Will some stuff be paid versus free? Never goes in the good direction for organic, but all those are factors. But I think that what you're doing and studying what's there, looking for those, and because proximity is the cause celeb with that shorter piece, it does give you the opportunity where if you're getting boxed out of somewhere, find where there is opportunity.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So going back to something we talked about Rand, when I saw him speak at SMX East a while back, he was talking about how like 83% of Google's searches never leave the results page because they're hoping to serve up that answer. And so really, I might be thinking of as the competitor next door as the person I'm competing with, but really I'm competing with Google. Now, in the law space, people will dive a little deeper given the nature of the problems.
Or
but
not.
Imagine if you're, maybe not. Yeah.
No, it's just saying, look, the top, their LSAs, they're not going to the website.
Right.
They're not going there for a lot of different, they're more, what Rand is saying is exactly right. And I've been talking about it, maybe not as long as him, but yes, everything Google's doing from flights to, and even if you eventually do leave the site, they're getting a piece of the action, right? So like, for travel, it's not talked about a lot, but if you put your dates at a city and or hotel in, it's amazing to see the 10 different people who are serving up a room for one given night. I saw this in Vegas there was a Pilma boot camp, and it was downtown, and the conference rate was like $200 for a room, and looking through the Google search, found that Snap Travel was at $49 a night. Pain in the butt to deal with them. I think it was sold to one of the big boys. I don't know if it's Expedia, Travelocity, or one of these guys, but it's a text-only reservation system. God forbid anything goes out, changing a name on a reservation takes an act of God. But when it comes to a cheap room, and again, this was all done through the Google interface directly from there to chat, which was just amazing.
See, I stay in the Rain Man suite when I'm in Vegas, because I'm a player. So that's just what it is. But, folks, what we want to talk about today is this whole conversation was sparked by Maddie's presentation last Friday night in the law firm Blueprint Group. And we actually have one coming up this week so that you could watch. And it's all about how to use social media effectively. It's something that I've given in the past, but it's called How Social Will Save Your Law Firm. And I really think you should tune into that and sort of see, and we'll talk about it on next week's show, some of the takeaways that I think that you can get from it. But one of the things that I want to talk about is an idea today, Seth, that we have been using tied into social that has really been proving dividends. And it actually came up when there was some conversation in the law firm Blueprint Group about what is one marketing tactic or technique or trick that you can use. And what we're doing is actually we're utilizing the Facebook targeting pixel that once a person hits our website and then bounces and leaves, we're actually serving them a carousel ad of reviews. So they'll see 5 to 10 Google reviews that we've screenshotted and we put them up just as images. We're not changing them. We're giving them the review in the look and feel that Google serves them up. And it's really proved amazing to us how much engagement those carousel ads, and setting up a carousel ad is not that hard. But if you
Oh,
target people
no,
who have
like
been on your
it's
website, you're basically giving them social proof that, hey, look, you looked at this website. Now look at all of these people that love this website. And of course, you get to pick which reviews you put up there. And it's been a phenomenal thing to sort of move the needle, because inevitably we get, hey, I keep reading your reviews, and it seems, we're talking a lot about reviews today. That's making a difference. So that's a little
I love it. Look, it's
tip.
bringing two things that I love together, right? It's retargeting and social proof. So that's awesome. Let's and look, I think partly it's just a clever ad. I remember
Right.
way back in the day when this is going back to the late '90s. So we created something that was an ad that was dynamic and sort of like was a gift that kept moving, and it was amazing that just being slightly ahead of the curve on artwork. What a difference that can make.
It's really amazing. The cool thing about those carousel ads is that you can actually use a video in them, so that will auto play. So if you filmed some of your clients giving a testimonial, put those videos in there. Edit them down to be 15 seconds, or and then give them a chance to click on the link to get to your site and back again, where they can see the whole thing. That would be a great way of doing it. In fact, now I'm thinking that's something that I'm going to delegate to my team to sort of get into place, because we have a whole bunch of filmed reviews that
Okay,
we can put into.
I got something. You remember just an idea? Remember a few weeks back when those game shows, those quiz game shows that were within the app became really huge? What if you took, and I've been experimenting a lot. We have a super new social media person in-house at Blue Shark who's been doing great work. Me, my dog, it was a young whippersnapper with a ring light is doing.
Okay, first of all, you just used the word whippersnapper
I was trying. I was going through
like
17 different words. I needed to make sure I didn't use something pejorative.
You just became old Jew dude. I'm sorry, but that's who you are.
As John Stewart said, you got to own it, right? So it's somebody who's not me who's figuring this out. So what I'm thinking is, what if it was, because look, to have somebody giving a review and understanding what that is in context of that is tough, but almost like having a host, a Carson Daly of sorts, that's sort of introducing it. That type of presenter was what I was thinking about. Was not a bad thing.
Dude, you know what you could do? You could go on Cameo. You could buy a promotion from Bruce Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's hear the reviews, and have that as the first thing in the carousel, and push it through, because I think you can hire him. I think you can hire him for businesses. A couple of those people on Cameo you can hire to pitch your product. I have a product that I'm dying to get somebody, if anybody's in the food service business and can help me put together a mail order product of pretzels. I have an idea that I think could take off if marketed properly. So please let me know in the comments, or reach out to me via DM, because I would love to see if we can market this product, because I think it would just take off. That's, so.
So concluding, I don't want to. We're going to be talking about reviews for a long time. I love this whole piece. I had one final topic for today, which was, ironically, it comes down to this, but it sort of is the other piece of the puzzle, right? So we started the conversation talking about offices and where to put pins on the map, but I got a really interesting question today from an old friend who has two websites for two different markets, a West Coast market and an East Coast market, and they had an exact match URL on the West Coast. So when they started the East Coast, or vice versa, they couldn't use that URL for both. One was keyword stuffed, the other was branded. And when they came and said, now I have West Coast and East Coast, I want a second East Coast location, but that didn't, what do you do? And like here, it's a game of chess, right? So you can't use the West Coast keyword stuffed URL, because that would make no sense for a random East Coast town. So then you're sort of left with, okay, let's layer that inside of that branded East Coast URL. Easy-ish, right? There are two issues with that. One, presumably, you've put all of your keywords for your main location on the main homepage. So wherever you go next, it's going to be one page off. Now, as the Price Benowitz site will show, we actually ended up with nothing on the homepage. So it's agnostic, and that all of the love on the exact match is DC, Maryland, or Virginia injury lawyer is one off the homepage. So if you're on Google My Business, you're going straight to that. We get all the love for press going to the top level, pricebenowitz.com coming down. It takes a lot of effort to do that. And so it will always be second tier in that you don't get the extra benefit of being that new location on the homepage, but the only other alternative is a third website. And dividing and conquering is tough enough. Going to three, you're starting to play a really uphill battle.
Right.
So assume for a second you're like, okay, I get my third office, my third location, not office, but third location will work within the branded URL, but you know that it's always going to be, so if it's hyper competitive, you're going to have an issue. Have I lost you or I got you?
No, you got me. And I'm wondering if they could take your approach with Price Benowitz. And so they've got homepage now. Could you create basically a new agnostic homepage and then have two?
You could, but you're killing the golden goose.
Right,
you have a location, and this is sort of why you are now hitting on the issue that everything you do has a reaction, right? So okay, you have a branded site with city A there. You want city B, right? And yes, that can be one off the homepage, but you're now you don't have that power. Now it's better than having both off the homepage. But if somebody goes to the homepage, they're not going to see that. So yes, you can direct them there, but there's a cost to it. Does that make sense? Meaning that somebody for that next location who gets to the homepage of that site sees a non-geocentric for them. It's fine for GMBs because you can put them linked to that page. If you do your SEO right, people will go straight to that page. And you could even get a vanity URL that goes directly to that subpage.
Right.
But there's the website itself, if somebody is directed, hey, go use this firm, they're going to get to a main URL that isn't featured. Now you could minimize it.
So does that then come back to the question, looking at the numbers, how many of their clients come, I'm going to say predominantly digitally, but are they coming through direct referral? Are they coming through paid? Are they coming through organic discovery? The people that they could actually convert, I think, is going to make the biggest
right, which is
part
why
of the
you
decision,
want to track, and why I was saying at the beginning of the show, a smaller number were coming through the Google My Business, but that may have been a higher percentage of revenue versus organically. So basically, just throwing that out there, that there's always a pull and a tug, or a pro and a con as to what to do. And then the next sort of the $1 million question is there a point where you wrap in the West Coast URL, get rid of that sort of spammy exact match world that you have? In theory, your local shouldn't be too badly affected because the local is still going to be going to that same page.
Right.
In theory, but it's risk. And also as an agency, I always use this analogy, which is when you do a renovation of a home or an apartment, there are things that you do if you live there where you might not pull a permit. But if you're doing it for somebody else,
have you met my brother-in-law?
The moment that something goes wrong, you're asked, they could say, hey, yeah, just get it done cheap. Oh, there's a fire, you didn't pull the electrical permit? Like, it's almost impossible to waive the liability because whatever goes wrong is on you. And that's one of those issues where you want to take black hat risks or gray hat risks, that's one thing. But as an agency, no matter what you do, a person could sign their name in blood. The moment shit goes wrong, it's on you, and you have that back and forth. That wasn't saying this was nothing bad here.
Right.
It's just when you're folding something in, we have times when people say, I lost my partner, I need a new URL, I can't use it. And there are times when it pops fine, and there are times when there's a dip and it comes back. Every single time you move a website, a lot of times it's great, And there are times where it dips. And look, sometimes it comes back in 2 weeks and sometimes it comes back in 2 months. But
Right.
those can be scary times.
It's interesting. It is. It's scary times, and it's something that you need to really always be paying attention to. Unfortunately, like you bring it up, they don't teach this stuff in law school. But if you're here listening to it, obviously you're paying attention to these things now, so you can go through some of the problems that we've had, see some of the solutions that we've devised. I wonder, I wonder, and this might be something that you and I do in the law firm Blueprint. Let's get a very clean, generic law domain name, pick a location, and do absolutely everything black hat we can think of to rank that as quickly as we can, and then stop and see how long it stays. That I think that'd be a heck of a case study to sort of see what happens. Where we're not necessarily looking to actually make real money off of it, but to see how long it is before it gets smacked down. Because the smackdown will come.
No,
But
and
that would be
and I'll conclude that where you see that a lot is the reputation management space. When
right.
there's a bad article about somebody and you can't get it removed through other means and you need to sort of push it down, the way is one of the top ways to do that is to find social sites. And then, you don't really care if you're spamming Twitter. People will do that to bring stuff down. And if it doesn't work, you haven't lost anything. But
Right.
that's, a great place to watch, as a lot of my colleagues say, spam works. It's just not something with the risk we're willing to live with.
Oh no, I agree. I wouldn't do it. I'm saying as a case study, it'd be kind of interesting to see if you did that, how the search engines would treat that, how all of those things. It'd be sort of, I mean, it'd be a multi-year study probably. But I don't want to get too far. I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole of cool ideas that we could just work on that just cost money and don't really actually help us move the needle. But
No,
that's
but
not why we're here.
I disagree. In those cases, a lot of people do this. Right? People do all sorts of stuff, and that's how when you see the different studies that come out on local, that's how people do it. Going back to Blumenthal, he had one test. He wasn't spamming. He had one test place. It was a jeweler, I think, out in Buffalo, in the suburbs, not near the city center. He would always use that as his test kitchen. And other people, adding. There was a study that just came out. Do terms or exact match terms in your GMB or Google Business Profile? Do they make a difference? And according to all the latest data, the answer is yes. Is it less powerful than it was pre-proximity? Absolutely, but it's still a factor. Now, that Google, and that is part of the issue of what they deal with, where those terms are indicative of somebody who is a good answer for something.
Right.
At the same time, it can be used to manipulate.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, that's a lot for our show. We went over, but I think both Seth and I are a little excited about the law firm Blueprint and what it means for all of us. Of course, if you want to catch us, we are live every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, here on Facebook on the Law Firm Blueprint page. It's streamed, to multiple groups online. The Mastermind Experience group, our group, our Law Firm Blueprint group gets the show. If you are a manager of a lawyer-centric group and you would like to stream our show in for your members, please reach out. We'd be happy to do that. But for now, we will sign off. I am Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. Thank you for being with us here at the Law Firm Blueprint. You have the blueprint. Now go build something great. Bye for now.